The silence in my kitchen was thick, broken only by the rhythmic thwack of my wooden spoon against a bowl of butter and sugar. But that silence was a lie. Out on the patio, shimmering through the warm September air, a conversation was taking place that would fracture my world. "Just make sure the old lady is busy," a voice Keurig. "She'll be so wrapped up in the kids she won't even notice she's missing her own son's wedding." My name is Eleanor Vance, and at 73 years old, I was about to learn that the deepest betrayals often come disguised as family. For 6 months, my life had revolved around one single glittering event: the wedding of my son David to his fiancée, Jessica. David was my only child, the center of my universe since my beloved husband, Arthur, passed away 15 years ago. Seeing him find happiness again after his difficult first marriage had filled me with a joy I could hardly contain. And Jessica, well, Jessica was perfect. Or so I believed. She was everything a mother could want in a daughter-in-law. Always polite, with a smile that could light up a room and a gentle, "Oh, Eleanor, you shouldn't have," whenever I did anything for them. She brought me orchids, remembered my birthday, and always, always praised my cooking. "David is just so lucky," she'd say, her eyes wide with admiration. "I hope I can learn to make your coco vin one day, Eleanor. It's legendary." It was this legendary cooking that had become my wedding gift. David and Jessica were saving for a house, and weddings, as I knew, were monstrously expensive. "Don't you worry about a thing," I had told them over pasta one Sunday night. "I will handle the entire buffet for the reception. It will be my gift to you." They protested. "Of course. Mom, that's too much. There are 150 guests," David had said, his eyes wide. "Nonsense," I'd replied, patting his hand. "It's what I do. It's how I show my love." And it was, but it was also a staggering amount of work. For the past 2 months, my small kitchen in the Boston suburbs had been transformed into a command center. Lists were taped to every cabinet. My freezer was a fortress of carefully prepared components. I had meticulously planned a menu that would have made a professional caterer weep: miniature crab cakes with a dill aioli, beef tenderloin sliders, 3 different gourmet salads, a rustic charcuterie display that spanned 12 feet, and for dessert, a towering croquembouche I planned to assemble on site. The cost of the ingredients alone had just crossed the $4,000 mark. My savings account was weeping, my back ached perpetually, and my hands were raw from constant washing. But I did it with joy. I did it for David. That Tuesday afternoon, 1 week before the wedding, I was triple-checking my ingredient list for the final fresh items. David was inside, on a work call in his old bedroom. Jessica was on the patio with her sister, Megan, who had just flown in. I was trying to calculate the exact number of Belgian endive leaves I'd need for the smoked salmon appetizers when I heard my name. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop. The kitchen window was open to catch the breeze, and their voices, light and careless, drifted in. "Look, Megan, I'm telling you, it's perfect," Jessica said. Her voice was different from the one she used with me. It was harder, a little metallic. "I've got the entire kid situation handled." "How?" Megan asked. "You told me there were like 15 of them, from babies to preteens. That's a nightmare for a reception." "Oh, it's genius," Jessica laughed, and the sound was like glass breaking. "David's mom, she's going to watch them." I froze. My spoon, heavy with creamed butter, hovered over the bowl. Megan laughed, a short barking sound. "You're kidding. You're making the mother of the groom babysit?" "She's perfect for it," Jessica insisted, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial whisper that carried perfectly to my window. "She's always doting, always offering to help. She's used to wrangling kids," she raised David, "right? This way, all the parents can cut loose and have fun, and we don't have to listen to screaming brats during the speeches." My stomach clenched. I moved silently, inching closer to the window, my body shielded by the curtain. "Wow, Jess, that's brilliantly evil," Megan said, though she sounded impressed. "But what about the buffet? I thought she was cooking the entire thing." "Exactly," Jessica exclaimed, as if this were the punchline to a brilliant joke. She'll be so busy running after little Timmy from accounting and your cousin's triplets that she won't even have time to eat the food she's been slaving over. More for the rest of us. Besides, it keeps her occupied. You know how these old ladies get at weddings. They get all weepy and want to tell boring stories about when the groom was 5. This way, she's useful. She's like a free, professional nanny for the whole night. A cold, heavy stone settled in my chest. Useful, old lady, keeps her occupied. Did you ask her? Megan ventured. Please, Jessica scoffed. You don't ask for things like that. You just create the situation. David mentioned to her that some kids would be there and that we were worried about them being bored. She immediately took the bait. Oh, don't you worry, I can set up a little corner for them, she said. She has no idea. She thinks she's setting up a coloring station. She doesn't realize she's the full-time entertainment and warden for 15 children for 6 hours. They both burst into laughter. It was a cruel, sharp sound that seemed to suck all the warmth from the afternoon. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands, covered in flour and butter, began to tremble. I had been a fool. For 2 years I had welcomed this woman into my home, into my heart. I had shared with her my stories, my recipes, the intimate memories of the son I adored. And in her eyes, I was not a mother, not a guest of honor, not even a person. I was a resource, a tool, a useful old lady to be managed and exploited. Just then, the patio door slid open, and I heard my son's voice. Hey, what are my favorite girls laughing about? Oh, nothing, honey. Jessica's voice instantly transformed, becoming the warm, sweet honey I was used to. Just telling Megan how amazing your mom is. She's even offered to help keep an eye on the kids at the reception. She's just a saint, isn't she? I waited, my breath held, for my son to defend me. To say, absolutely not. That's ridiculous. My mother is the mother of the groom, and she will be sitting at the head table, enjoying the buffet she spent $4,000 on. But all he said was, yeah, she's the best. Always willing to chip in. She's got endless energy, that one. I don't know how she does it at her age. At her age, the words, spoken by my own son, were the final twist of the knife. They hadn't just planned this. He was complicit. He saw his 3-year-old widowed mother, who was already cooking a feast for 150 people, and thought, yes, she has the energy to chase 15 children too. I backed away from the window, my knees weak. I walked on autopilot, up the stairs to my bedroom. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed I had once shared with Arthur. On the nightstand sat a photo of him, his arm around a much younger me, David, a small boy on his shoulders. Arthur would never have let this happen. He would have seen Jessica for exactly what she was. He always said I loved too easily, trusted too freely. Your heart is an open door, Ellie, he used to say. Just be careful who you let walk in. I looked at my flour-dusted hands, the deep wrinkles around my knuckles. This was not the legacy he would have wanted for me. I had spent a lifetime putting others first. My husband, my son, my community. And this was the thanks. To be relegated to the children's table not as a guest, but as staff. The anger came first, hot and pure, a white-hot rage that made my vision swim. But beneath it was something colder and far more painful, humiliation. I was ashamed. Ashamed that I had been so blind, so desperate for a daughter that I had ignored the warning signs. Ashamed that my son saw me not as his mother, but as a solution. I sat there for a very long time. The anger cooled, and the humiliation settled. And then, slowly, something else rose in its place. It was a feeling I hadn't truly felt in decades. It was the sharp, clean, cold feeling of resolve. If they wanted to play games, I would play. But I had been playing games of strategy, of emotional endurance, of household finance for 73 years. They were amateurs. I was a grandmaster. For the next 3 days, I was the perfect, doting mother. I smiled. I nodded. I finalized lists. When Jessica called to check in, her voice dripping with false concern, I was angelic. Oh, Eleanor, you must be exhausted. Please don't overdo it. Not at all, dear, I chirped. I'm just so excited. Everything is perfectly on track. And you're still okay to, help with the kids? We found this cute little room right off the main hall for them. Of course, sweetie, I said, my voice as smooth as butter. You won't have to worry about a single thing. On Wednesday, I made my first call. It was to my oldest friend, Brenda. Brenda and I had known each other since our children were in diapers. She was a retired lawyer with a spine of steel and absolutely no filter. Brenda, I said, I need your help with a plan. Eleanor? She replied, her voice sharp with intrigue. I haven't heard that tone since you plotted to get the city council to fix the potholes on our street in '98. Who are we destroying? I told her everything. The conversation, the kids, the useful old lady. For a full minute, there was silence on the other end. Then Brenda let out a low whistle. That little vixen, Brenda hissed. And David, I'm ashamed of him. Arthur would be turning in his grave. I know, Bren, but I'm past being hurt. Now I'm getting even, or at least getting my dignity back. Are you free this Saturday? For you, Eleanor? I'd cancel a date with the Pope. What's the plan? I laid it out. Her initial reaction was a gasp. Then she began to laugh. It was a deep, throaty, wonderful cackle. Oh, Ellie, you absolute magnificent genius. I will be at your house at 7 a.m. sharp, with the good luggage. My next calls were more practical. First, to the butcher. Good morning. This is Eleanor Vance. I need to cancel my order for Saturday. The large one. Yes, the tenderloins, the chickens. All of it. A family emergency. Then, to the specialty grocer. I'm afraid I won't be needing the 30 pounds of assorted cheeses or the imported olives. Yes, a terrible shame. Then to the florist. To cancel the extra centerpieces. I was gifting them. Each call cost me a cancellation fee. I lost nearly $500 in deposits. I considered it the best money I had ever spent. On Thursday, I went to the bank and withdrew $4,000 in cash, the money I had saved for the buffet. On Friday, Brenda and I went online and booked a last-minute, total indulgence package at the most expensive, exclusive spa in the Berkshires. 2 nights, Lakeview Suite, hot stone massages, aromatherapy facials, champagne on arrival, and a 5-course tasting menu. Friday night, the eve of the wedding, David called. He sounded stressed. Mom, everything good? All set for tomorrow? Everything is perfect, David, I said, my voice calm and loving. Tomorrow is going to be a day you will never, ever forget. Great, great. You're the best, Mom. Tiffany and I were just saying, we literally could not have done this without you. Oh, I know, dear, I said, looking at my packed suitcase by the door. I know. Now, you get a good night's sleep. Big day tomorrow. That night, I slept like a baby for the first time in weeks. Saturday morning dawned bright and crisp, a perfect October day. At 7 a.m. on the dot, Brenda's vintage Mercedes rolled into my driveway. She hopped out, wearing a fabulous silk scarf and sunglasses. Ready for your jailbreak, Mrs. Vance? She grinned. More ready than I've ever been, I said, handing her my suitcase. Before we left, I placed a single, sealed envelope on the kitchen table, right where David always sat. The drive to the Berkshires was glorious. We put the top down, even though it was chilly, and let the autumn air whip our hair. We played Frank Sinatra. We talked about our husbands, our children, and the countless times we had been useful instead of valued. It's a generational sickness, Brenda said, gripping the wheel. We were taught that our value was in our servitude. We baked the cookies, we drove the carpools, we hosted the holidays, and we were supposed to just be grateful for the privilege. Well, I said, adjusting my own sunglasses, this generation is about to learn a new lesson. We arrived at the spa at 10 a.m. It was heaven, nestled by a glittering lake, surrounded by trees ablaze in red and gold. A very handsome young man in a crisp uniform greeted us with flutes of champagne. Welcome, ladies. Your treatments will begin in 1 hour. Is this a special occasion? Yes, I said, taking a sip and smiling a real, genuine smile for the first time in days. I'm celebrating my independence. As I settled into my plush robe in a beautiful room overlooking the lake, I glanced at the clock. 11:30 a.m. Back in Boston. The panic would be starting. The caterers, were a no-show. The reception hall, which I had also promised to help decorate, would be bare. My phone, sitting on the marble vanity, began to ring. The screen flashed, "David." I let it ring. 5 minutes later, it rang again, and again. I sighed, picked it up, and switched it to "Do Not Disturb." "Miss Vance?" A young woman with a beatific smile was at my door. "Your hot stone massage is ready." "Thank you, dear," I said. "This is just what I needed." For the next 3 hours, I was in a state of bliss. The massage melted away months of stress. The facial left my skin glowing. Brenda and I met for a gourmet lunch on the terrace, food I hadn't cooked, served by people who called me ma'am and treated me with impeccable respect. "To us, Eleanor," Brenda said, raising her glass of crisp Sauvignon Blanc. "To old ladies who are no longer useful." "I'll drink to that," I laughed. At 3 p.m., I finally decided to check my phone. It was a digital testament to a full-scale meltdown. 17 missed calls. David 4. Missed calls. Jessica, a new record of desperation. 8 text messages. I scrolled through the texts, a grim chronicle of their dawning horror. 10:02 a.m. David, "Mom, where are you? The hall is locked. I thought you had the key." 10:30 a.m. David, "Mom, I'm worried." "You're not answering. Call me." 11:15 a.m. David, "Mom, I found your note." "What does this mean? Enjoying a rest? Canceled the buffet?" "This isn't funny." 12 p.m. David, "The wedding starts in 4 hours. There is no food. Mom, where is the food you promised?" 1:30 p.m. Jessica, "Eleanor, you need to call us right now. This is not okay." 2:15 p.m. David, "Mom, please. Tiffany is hysterical. Her makeup is ruined. You're ruining our wedding." 2:45 p.m. David, "The guests are starting to arrive for the ceremony. We have 150 people coming to a reception with no food. What did you do?" And the last one, sent just 2 minutes ago. 2:58 p. David, "Mom, I know you're mad. We can talk about it later. But the kids are here. There are 15 of them, and their parents are asking who's supposed to watch them. We don't know what to do." I took a deep breath, looked out at the serene lake, and dialed my son's number. He answered on the first, frantic ring. "Mom, where are you?" His voice was a high-pitched shriek of pure panic. "Good afternoon, David," I said, my voice calm and cool. "I'm at a lovely spa in the Berkshires with Brenda. I'm just about to have a chocolate-infused body wrap. How is your special day going?" "Mom, are you insane?" he yelled. "The wedding is a disaster. There's no food. The centerpieces are missing. The guests are hungry." "Oh dear," I said, inspecting my freshly manicured nails. "That does sound like a problem. Didn't you read my note?" I explained. I had to cancel the buffet when I discovered my actual role for the evening. What are you talking about?" he stammered. "My role is the free, professional nanny, David. The useful old lady who needed to be kept busy so I wouldn't interrupt the adults. Does any of that sound familiar?" The silence on the other end was profound. I could hear the chaos in the background, guests talking loudly, a child crying, what sounded like Jessica sobbing. "Mom, you heard that?" he whispered. "I heard every word, David. The conversation on the patio last Tuesday. How Jessica and her sister thought it was genius to use me. How I'd be too busy with the screaming brats to eat the $4,000 buffet I was paying for and preparing. And how you just agreed." "Mom, it wasn't like that," he began. But his voice was weak. "It was exactly like that. You're a 45-year-old man, David. Did it never, not once, occur to you to ask me if I wanted to spend my only son's wedding reception chasing children I don't know?" Or did you just assume my time, my energy, and my money were yours to command? Wait, Mom, let me put Jessica on. I heard fumbling, and then the voice of the woman who had, just days before, been so sweet. Eleanor, you cannot do this to us. Jessica shrieked, all pretense of honey gone. You promised us that buffet. There are 150 people here. Hello, Jessica, I said, my voice dropping a few degrees. I promised the buffet when I believed I was a cherished guest of honor. But when I found out I was actually the unpaid staff, the terms of my contract changed. As the saying goes, labor must be compensated, and I never agreed to the job description. But the kids, there are 15 kids running around. Their parents are furious. Yes, I imagine that's very difficult, I said sympathetically. What about your sister? What was her name? Megan? I heard she thought the plan was brilliantly evil. Perhaps she can step in and manage the brats? I heard a sharp intake of breath. You heard everything. Walls have ears, dear, especially when one is discussing how to exploit their future mother-in-law. I suggest you look in the yellow pages under babysitting. Or, perhaps, emergency catering. I believe several local pizza places deliver in bulk. You ruined my wedding, she screamed, her voice cracking. No, Jessica, I said, standing up and walking to the terrace of my suite. You ruined your wedding when you decided that respect was optional. You planned on using me. I simply declined to be used. There's a difference. I heard David take the phone back. His voice was small, broken. Mom, the cake. One of the kids got into the kitchen. He knocked over the cake. I winced. That was collateral damage I hadn't intended. Oh, David, that's a shame. Mom, please, he begged. And now he was crying. Please, just come home. We'll pay you. We'll give you $1,000. Just come and fix this. The offer of money was the final, most profound insult. $1,000, David? I laughed, a short, bitter sound. 5 days ago, it was a gift of love. Now that you're desperate, you think you can buy my dignity? My dignity, it turns out, is priceless. And it's currently enjoying a Swedish massage. I have to go now. My therapist is waiting. Mom, wait! What do we do? You are an adult, David. You are married to a woman who is, apparently, very organized. I'm sure you two will figure it out. Enjoy your pizza. I'll be back Monday. We can talk then. Mom, no! I hung up the phone. I turned it off, completely. Brenda was standing in the doorway, a flute of champagne in each hand. She had heard everything. Her eyes were shining with unshed tears of pride. Eleanor Vance, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You are my hero. I took the champagne and walked onto the balcony. The sun was beginning to set, painting the lake in hues of orange and violet. I felt a pang of sadness for the wedding that should have been, for the joy I should have felt. But mostly, I felt light. I felt free. I had spent 73 years serving others. For the first time, I had served myself. I didn't turn my phone back on for the rest of the night. Brenda and I had the 5-course tasting menu, and it was divine. We talked, we laughed, and we planned a trip to Italy. The next morning, we had brunch, another massage, and drove home in comfortable, liberating silence. I returned to my house Sunday evening. It was quiet and clean. Just as I'd left it, the note was gone from the table. My phone, when I finally turned it on, had 58 new messages and 32 missed calls from a myriad of relatives, all in various states of confusion and outrage. My sister-in-law, Elena, had left a message. Charlotte, Marcus called me. He said, you ordered pizza? Call me. I'm very confused, but also very impressed. I had, it seemed, become a family legend. I made myself a cup of tea and sat in my quiet living room. I felt at peace, but I knew it wasn't over. At 6 p.m., the doorbell rang. It was David, alone. He looked awful. His eyes were red and puffy, his suit was wrinkled, and he looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. Hi, Mom, he said, his voice a low croak. Hello, David. Come in. He sat on the sofa, the same sofa he'd sat on as a boy. He put his head in his hands. He didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he looked up, and his eyes were filled with a shame so deep it hurt me to see it. "It was a disaster, Mom. A complete, humiliating disaster." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. We ordered pizza for 150 guests. The photographer, he took pictures of it. Of Jessica, in her $5,000 dress, crying over a stack of Domino's boxes. Her parents were mortified. Our relatives were furious. 3 of the kids' parents left early. After one of them, little Timmy, got into the bar and, well, "I see. Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "I am so sorry. I let her." "You let her, David?" I interrupted, my voice quiet but firm. "No. You participated. You agreed. You called me the best for chipping in at my age. You saw your 3-year-old mother, who was already doing more than any mother should, and you saw a solution. An employee." He flinched, but he nodded. "You're right. I know you're right. When I heard what you heard, what she said, I felt sick. I wanted to make her happy, and I stopped seeing you. That was it. That was the core of it. I stopped seeing you." "I love you, David," I said, my voice softening. "But love is not what this was about. This was about respect. And you and your wife showed me none. You treated my love as a commodity, something you were entitled to." "I know," he whispered. Is there any way I can fix this?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "That's up to you, and it's up to her. But I will tell you this, David, and I need you to listen. This changes. From now on, things are different." I laid out my terms. My time was my own. My yes was a gift, not an obligation. My no was a complete sentence, not a negotiation. I would be a grandmother one day, if they were so lucky. I would not be a full-time, unpaid nanny. I was his mother, not his staff. He listened. He nodded. He cried. He apologized again, and this time it felt real. Jessica was harder. She didn't come for 2 weeks. When she finally did, she was a different woman from the one I'd seen on the patio. She was subdued, humbled, and, I realized, terrified. She sat where David had sat. "Eleanor," she began, her voice trembling. I have no excuse. What I said, what I planned, it was monstrous." "Yes," I said, "it was." She told me about her own mother, who had been cold and critical. She told me about her insecurities, her fear of not being perfect, her jealousy of my easy relationship with David. She told me she had been going to therapy. I saw your willingness to help," she said, "and I didn't see it as love. I saw it as a weakness, something to be exploited. I am so deeply ashamed, and I am so sorry." I looked at this young woman who had caused me so much pain, and I saw, for the first time, not a villain, but a flawed, broken person. It took time, a long time. It was not fixed in a day or a month, but we started over, awkwardly. Honestly, David and Jessica had to host a second, much smaller, apology dinner for their families, where they both stood up and publicly apologized for the disastrous wedding, taking full responsibility. It was, I'm told, profoundly uncomfortable and absolutely necessary. A year later, Tiffany called me. "Eleanor?" she said, her voice nervous. I know it's my birthday next week, and David is planning a party, and I was wondering, if you're not busy, would you be willing to, maybe, show me how to make that legendary CO coq au vin? I smiled. "I'm not sure, dear," I said. "Let me check my schedule. I might be going to Italy. But why don't you come over on Tuesday, and we'll see." I hung up the phone and walked into my kitchen. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. A 4-year-old woman looked back at me, her eyes clear and her spine straight. I had learned the hardest lesson of my life, that you can love your family with all your heart, but you must never, ever love them more than you love your own dignity. Respect is not something you are given, it is something you demand. And sometimes, you have to cancel the buffet, book a spa, and let the whole world burn down, just to remind them, and yourself, that you are not just useful, you are invaluable.